This is Empowering from Within, a show here to remind us how strong and excellent and valuable we all are, and that we all get to love ourselves and our lives no matter what. Happy New Year and welcome to Empowering from Within. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here as we kick off a new calendar year. We don't need to go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories about whether this is actually the new year. That we can do on our own time. But for this podcast episode, I want to talk about the frequency and consciousness scale and emotions and basically just like energy in a broader sense and how our emotions play into that, and why I am a very key proponent of emotional mastery and how emotional mastery has truly changed my life. As we know, no problem can be solved from the same frequency or intelligence or level of awareness in which it was created, right? So if we're having a problem, if we're running up against obstacles, we're at the level of that obstacle in terms of our energetic frequency. We are an energetic match to be experiencing that obstacle. If we can raise our awareness and our energy and our frequency above the problem, then we're probably, aka definitely, going to start to be a match to solutions and solves and seeing it in a different way and perspective. And I am a huge fan of David R. Hawkins, and I have probably read Letting Go, his book about emotions, maybe 7 or 8 times. And I've read Power versus Force around 4, probably. And every time I go in there to those chapters, I find something new. And basically, he was a psychologist who was very, very obsessed with enlightenment and consciousness. And if we think of consciousness as basically just awareness, right? It's a very profound level of awareness where you are aware that you're aware. You're aware that you're having thoughts right now. You're aware that you're alive in a body, listening to a podcast, that you're having an experience. And the greater consciousness we have and the deeper awareness we have, the better life is, because when we're unconscious and not aware, we get completely sucked in to our emotions, our sort of lower level, more difficult emotions. When I say lower level, I mean like lower level on the consciousness scale. And we kind of get clouded and wrapped up in the negative experience of the emotion without seeing a wider perspective. And we go into that fight or flight or fawn or freeze response. And we're having tunnel vision and using all our resources just to stay alive, rather than using our greater awareness and greater resources to see the broader perspective and realize that, you know, from personal experience, making a grammatical error on an Instagram post is not a near-death situation, even though it felt like it in my nervous system last week when I commented on a public figure's post and realized I used incorrect grammar, and I beat myself up and started spinning. And because the public figure responded, so then I was like, oh my God. And then all these people started liking my comment. And I was like, okay, that's like 21 people who have seen that I can't write proper English. And I got into a little tears. But fortunately, I have emotional mastery tools. And I was like, wait a second, I'm actually not dying. This is absolutely fine. Humans are allowed to make grammatical errors when they correspond with people in public. And I don't think I'm going to be like stoned on a hill because I forgot an apostrophe. So as you can see, when you have a higher frequency, and I could see it from a wider perspective, I no longer was spitting out and freaking out and in a triggered and stressed state. Small example, but you get my point. So let's have a quick look at the consciousness scale. You don't have to look. I know you're probably doing something while you're listening to this, but I'm going to run you through some of the frequency calibrations and their corresponding emotion, and then some behaviors that might represent someone operating at that frequency. And this is not to say that people higher up the scale are any better or worse than people operating at different lower levels of the scale, because as human beings, we all experience every emotion. No one is immune to shame or anger or humiliation or whatever it might be. It's just when we have the capacity to transmute those lower emotions and rise again, it is a more peaceful and harmonious way to operate in life. And we tend to see solutions and act proactively and with greater amounts of courage and strength. We see people in more flattering lights. We can see when other people are triggered without, sending the rah, rah, rah text, or, we're able to be empowered and take responsibility for ourselves and our lives. And so this is why it is very helpful to get ourselves out of the lower rungs of consciousness. And so the scale goes from 0 to 1,000. 1,000 would be just pure light. Energy in its highest, most high frequency vibration is light that we cannot see. Energy at its lowest vibration is dense, slow vibrating matter. That is why negative emotions feel so heavy and dense and constricting in our bodies, and higher emotions feel so expansive and buzzy and wonderful in our bodies, because we're literally vibrating at a higher energetic rate and frequency, and we're not being weighed down by denser feelings. Now, obviously, these are esoteric concepts. There has not been 1,000 double-blind peer-reviewed studies about David R. Hawkins' work. This is a philosophical and personal framework that I like to use. And I also make decisions in my life that are not based on double-blind peer-reviewed studies. I think there's this real push at the moment in society for everything to be rigorously tested by science, as if science is the benchmark for all that is truthful and holy. And it's like, I disagree. We all know that universities are funded by some pretty creepy, dark, elite families out there in the world. We all know that, the most famous study telling us to eat 3 meals a day was funded by the Kellogg's family. I think as much as people in the science world like to poke holes in the spiritual or intuitive world, I think science can be just as easily hole poked, if that is a phrase. And I also think that, there's an element of discernment and critical thinking that we are being called to rely on in our lives now, with AI and, government, media, Hollywood, all being exposed as having monopolies on, truth and knowledge that are not well-founded. And there are a lot of people at the top of institutions and a lot of authority figures and a lot of people that have giant platforms like celebrities who have no wisdom and no life experience and no connection to their internal knowing. I mean, when you have had an experience where you just know something is true because you've been through it so many times, or you've seen the pattern every which way, you don't need someone to validate it for you from the outside. You just have an internal knowing. So I think do with this scale what you will. I personally find it deeply helpful. And the more that I rely on my own intuition and discernment and critical thinking, and the more that I process my emotions and live in deep integrity, the more that I can easily spot incongruence and people who are telling us something that are lying or have an ulterior motive. And when I listen to David R. Hawkins' books, and when I listen to his lectures and watch him speak in some of his lectures that are still available online, he's no longer with us, I'm like, this calibrates truthfully for me in my internal system. But it is your life and your experience to find what resonates as truth for you, and to have the self-trust and the wisdom to follow that. And to me, truth feels like lightness and expansiveness and resonance. And our triggers and our emotions are not truth. They are not our intuition and our inner knowing. They are us being in a state of stress and being triggered. And so once you start to clear your emotions, transmute them and shift them, then your intuition comes on even louder. So thank you for allowing me that sidebar about the rabbit hole of science and intuition and our own discernment, which is becoming very critical in this day and age. Okay, so the scale goes from 0 to 1,000. And on the very lower ends of the scale are emotions. So at 20, the emotion of shame calibrates, like humiliation, self-loathing, going up to 30 where guilt resides, like blame, regret. Moving up to 50 is where you would find apathy, hopelessness, despair. 75 is grief, sadness, and loss. We all know how that feels in the body. It is a tough one. Fear is at a 100. Desire, like craving and attachment, is at a 125. 150 on the scale is anger. 175, pride. So feeling superior. So not pride in like the usual sense. Feeling superior, defensiveness, and sort of arrogance, controlling. Now, middle levels, which are more empowering and growth orientated, is when we reach 200 and above. And it has been considered by many that the majority of the world population operates at a calibration on the scale that is below 200. So that is a lot of people in fight or flight, survival, feeling arrogant, lying to survive, to get ahead, constantly in a state of wanting and desire. So that is a lot of sort of lower level consciousness energy out there in the world. Now, the next level that tips over into empowerment is courage, which ranks at a 200 on the scale. Then there is neutrality, which is 250. So things like flexibility, trust, having an open mind, being adaptable. That's at a 250. 310 ranks as willingness, optimism, intentionality, initiative, learning, helping other people. At a 350 is acceptance. So like forgivingness, understanding, letting go, balance. Now, higher levels that are more transformational and enlightened on the scale are considered 400 and above. And in my experience, people who operate the majority of their lives at a 400 frequency or above are teacher souls, healer souls. They are people in the world who are on a mission to help heal other people and teach the world how to live better lives or make huge improvements in nations. So 400 is the level of reason, understanding, knowledge seeking, analytical thinking, wise decision making. 500 is love. So like true love, like compassion, love in an unconditional sense, not like I love you except for this one thing. Empathy, kindness, service. At a 540, we have joy, serenity, fulfillment, peaceful, content, just radiating, positive energy. 600 is peace. So that's where there's sort of like a deep inner calm and spiritual awareness, and you feel pretty detached from your ego. 700 and above is like full unity, bliss, enlightenment. And it's sort of self-realization, complete awareness, and living in a state of pure consciousness. Now, you can be like an ascended master of enlightenment, like a monk or something, or just a very incredibly aware person in day-to-day life operating at a really high frequency, but your level will drop if you stub your toe, check an email that makes you feel shame or humiliation or whatever. So it's not about getting to a level and staying there. It's about constantly just recalibrating your energy and your frequency when you notice that you drop down into that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, stress, shame, humiliation, guilt, fear, panic type energy, and trying to transmute it and release it and rise back into the more higher levels of consciousness. Now, interestingly enough, drinking alcohol, which I have done a lot of in my time, especially in my teens and 20s, ranks below a 125 on the scale. So I can see that I was drinking as a way to numb and avoid. And, to my 20-year-old mind, I was genuinely partying and having fun. But now that I've experienced the higher levels of consciousness and done so much inner healing to really alchemize all the difficult emotions that I've been through and that pop up for me. And I take it quite seriously. If you saw my notes app and the intense journaling that goes on in there, every time I feel a really heavy, difficult emotion, I'm straight into these journal prompts that I have, trying to figure out exactly what the emotion is, what the belief underneath it is. And I find journaling most helpful because when we're in fight or flight or we're in a lower level of an emotion, centers of our brain go offline and all our blood and focus is directed to our amygdala because our body thinks that we need to, run and get out of whatever dangerous situation we're in. So journaling helps me see it from the outside more easily. You know how you can see when someone else is triggered really easily, but when you're triggered, it's hard to get to the sort of nub of what you're feeling and what the emotion is. But as soon as you label what you're feeling, as soon as you say and connect the feeling in your body to the emotional label, your brain actually starts to let go very quickly and divert resources back to its normal operating peaceful way of being. So yes, as much as I was supposed to child for having a drink with friends on the weekend in earlier years in my life, I now have experienced such deep inner peace and feelings of harmony internally from emotional mastery and taking such excellent care of my energy at all times that I no longer would seek out alcohol as a way to have a good time and feel good. I absolutely respect people who do. I have dear loved ones who enjoy a drink and I have no problem with that. But just for me personally, having now understood the repercussions of emotions and alcohol and states of being on my awareness and energy and consciousness, I just have zero desire to lower my frequency. And I'm not saying lower as a bad thing. I am higher than someone who drinks. It's literally just a way to quantify where our energy is sitting on the scale, because you can have a drink and then pop straight back up to enlightenment the next day, or maybe the day after the next day. Anyway, that aside, this is why, high performers and leaders and anyone who's sort of achieved anything great in history, always talks about to master life is to master oneself. You must master yourself before you master anything, right? Because you can't operate from a triggered state. You can't operate from fear and sort of more heavy emotions and make the big, grand, great, wise, epic choices and decisions and take actions from courage and strength when you're in that fight or flight situation. And this is why I think that the coaching world and the spiritual world is popping off right now, because so many leaders and high performers know that mastering your energy and your emotional state will put you ahead of everyone in the room, because you can't be played when you're not emotional, and you make really excellent decisions and you have better relationships and you feel resourced and strong when you are mastering your emotions and your energy, and you take the inspired path that leads to greatness, and you don't play the same game as everyone else trying to fit in and belong and play it safe, because you can handle and transmute any discomfort that comes up when you're putting yourself out there and doing bold career moves, bold financial moves. And when you're in the habit of continuously and consistently raising your vibration, then you become a match for different levels of opportunity, solutions, solves, people who are all also operating at a higher frequency. And as we said at the beginning, a problem can't be solved from the same frequency in which it was created. So you start to continuously sort of scale up this ladder. And of course, we're going to drop back down and face difficult emotions no matter what level of the game we are playing. I'm sure that even the people you most admire who have attained like massive success, they still have problems. They just have problems at a different level. And then they need to rise to meet the solutions of those problems and keep recalibrating their energy and transmuting their lower level feelings. And when you're operating in higher states of consciousness, awareness, and frequency, the things that you become a match to are also more expansive and more unlimited and more empowering, because you are at an energetic frequency to run into those things and those people and those opportunities. So it becomes a very positive snowballing effect, and you just keep up leveling. And having coaching to help master your emotions and your old limiting beliefs and patterns and wounds that are triggering you and properly heal them means you're so far ahead of the game in life, because you can keep a clear, level head in career. You can take responsibility for large groups of people. You can make bold decisions, and you can come home and have harmony in your personal life and basically just operate at a completely different level, a level of excellence, a level of peace, and you can actually enjoy your life because you're not stressed beyond belief because of your responsibilities at work or the crises going down in your personal life. You have the mastery to handle anything and to actually make inspired decisions and choices. So there's absolutely no need to fret if you find yourself in a lower state, if you're in shame, if you're in guilt, if you're in anger. These are helpful feedback mechanisms to let us know what is ready to be healed, and suppressing them, running from them, avoiding them, which I have done all of these things, is not the way, because suppressed anger is still just anger. Shoved down fear is still just fear. These emotions still radiate from our energy at the exact same calibration, regardless of whether we are conscious or not conscious of them. And they'll run us, and our wounds will literally drive every decision we make and every choice we make and every action we take if we are not bringing them to our conscious awareness and shifting them and interrogating the validity of, limiting beliefs or our really old triggers or our new triggers or our ways of being that have been informed by trauma, different coping mechanisms from childhood that, everyone has had adverse experiences in childhood that were a level 10 to them. But the thing that puts you way, way, way ahead of the game is having the self-awareness to manage and shift when you are in those lower energy frequencies, and it will just absolutely transform your life. And it's difficult. I get support. I have mentors and coaches when I'm struggling. I have got to a level now where I can manage myself very excellently, and I do this for other people. So I'm at a stage now where I really can have emotional mastery the majority of the time. I still check in with mentors every so often, or if I'm trying to achieve something that's in my next level. And I welcome you to reach out for coaching support around your emotional mastery, starting to shift and heal whatever is happening in your inner world, because it will get you to that next level in life, and it will give you so much peace and clarity. And it's so much easier to do it with support and the person looking from the outside who has already shifted and healed their own inner issues. I don't see any coaches or mentors who aren't doing the work themselves, because there's a difference between living it and just telling someone how to live with no experience or mastery yourself. That is of no use to anyone. So as someone who is living this and already activated in shifting my own energy, I've already made all the mistakes. So you will do it way quicker than I have. And it would be, such an honor and privilege to gift you all the tools and processes that I use and to get you to your next level of achievement or mastery in whatever you are out there achieving or overcoming. And I have a goal in my mentoring business that I will change someone's life in one session. I will give them absolutely everything that I can and everything that has changed my life, that will give them the biggest transformation possible with whatever they come to me with so that it doesn't create a dependency. This is not a therapy style session. This is, no offense to any therapists listening, but this is better than therapy because we're actually shifting. We're not just talking about it. And I think therapy is really helpful to get you to a certain point if you feel called to do that. But there comes a time when you actually need to shift and you actually need to leap ahead and flip the beliefs on their head, not just understand them and talk about them ad nauseum, but actually heal them and overcome them. And that is where a mentor comes in. So please feel free to DM me or go to my website and book in a session. I am sending everyone high frequency emotions and perspectives this week. And if not, I am sending you inner healing and transformation to shift whatever pops up. We got this. We are empowered from within, and we are going to have a most excellent 2026. Thank you so much for being here. Much love. Thank you so much for being here today. If you want to keep hanging out, because I sure do, then head to my Instagram @Phoebesgram or my website, phoebestewart.com.